Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everyone, here on Big Blend Radio. We are excited to celebrate National Thank You Month. Now, I would have thought that that would be in November, but that's Gratitude Month. And I think thankfulness as well. But January is about thank you. And I love that idea because we start off the new year. We have like this, hope and promise. And it kind of gets us back to thinking about who are we thankful for in our lives, in our work lives. And that's kind of what we're focusing on today is, in our work lives, our careers, and some of us have had many of them, many careers. We think about those people that we looked up to, that we looked at it as a role model or a mentor in our life, or even it's a book. It could be a movie. It could be anything, that kind of set us on that path to what we do now that, makes us happy and fuels our passion. We've got two great guests joining Nancy and I here on Big Blend Radio. Of course, we've got Johnny Schaefer, award-winning singer-songwriter. He's on our Big Daily Blend show every first Sunday. And he created and founded the Gratitude Club on Facebook. So we had to have him on the show. So welcome back, Johnny. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys doing? Hi, Nancy.
Good. Hey. Good. Hey, we're glad you're here. I know you went through the fires in Los Angeles, so you had us at the edge of our seat and ready to go. Like, do we need to drive out there and get you in Paco, So we're really, really grateful that we're thankful, grateful that you guys are okay. And, of course, our hearts are with everyone in Los Angeles area. I mean, it really impacts everyone in Southern California, but I think it really impacts the world with what happens in Los Angeles, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's going to change LA forever. And, we were 2 blocks from the evacuation zone. And we didn't have to evacuate, but we had the car loaded up for about a week. And we have several friends who lost everything, and a lot of the businesses that we go to all the time up in Altadena are gone. And it's heartbreaking, and it's tragic. But one thing about LA is there's a lot of love and a lot of people that pull together, and it's beautiful to see all the ways that that people are already doing that. And and then people from around the world are sending, what they can to help out. And the fires are still raging, and there are a couple new ones now. So it's only January. So
yeah, breathe easy. Yeah. Breathe and watch and be safe. And, of course, there's many nonprofits people can give to, like the Red Cross, the World Kitchen. I feel like I'm repeating all the same organizations from all the Hurricane Helene benefits we were doing. But it's true. These are really good organizations. Of course, animal shelters need help. There's also Music Cares, and this is connected with the Grammys, which are still happening. We'll be talking about that on Sunday's podcast. And since this is airing on Monday, you would have heard it already. So there you go. There's, it's really, it's a sad thing, but, everyone go to, Johnny's website. It's herejohnny.com. Everyone's links are in the episode notes. We also have our good friend, EVA ELDRIDGE here. She is a writer. She is a publishing expert. She's an editor, and, she's always on Big Blend Radio. And last time she was talking about pie. But today she's going to talk about who and what she's thankful for. So welcome back, Eva. How are you?
I'm good today. Thank you.
Good. So I hear you've been making lemon curd out in Tucson. So Eva and Elaine Powers, who we have a recording coming on at the end of this conversation. Elaine is a children's book author, over 25 books, right? Amazing. But the two of them are Madam Presidents of the Tucson Sisters in Crime Writing Organization in Tucson, Arizona. So just to give a shout out to the Tucson Sisters in Crime. Sometimes you might have to commit a crime and then be thankful for it. Uh-oh.
It's an interesting name.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of thinking, like, can we create a list? But anyway, I know who's on that list. But yeah, Eva, how's the lemon curd? Is it tasting good?
The first batch is delicious. Yes, it's in the process of cooling, so I can put it in its little jars and put it in the fridge.
Cool.
I have to make a second batch.
Are you taking
lemon is one of my weaknesses. Sorry.
Johnny. Say
I don't
lemon.
know why it's so, well, I guess, egg yolks and sugar and butter. How can you go wrong, right?
What do you put lemon curd on? I know we're going into a food show now, but come on now. It's fun.
It can go. A lot of people eat it on like their toast or their English muffins or scones.
Mhm.
And then I'm gonna put it in a cake, a lemon curd pound cake. I'm gonna make that.
No.
Yum.
Yeah.
Oh.
So hence the second batch. So yeah, a tablespoon usually is good for, that kind of thing. So you're not eating it like pudding because it's kind of like pudding. It's
Mm.
just rich.
Mhm.
You know what,
It's
Mhm.
yummy.
everyone, I just want to start off the show on the thankfulness, and I'm so glad Eva's in our lives because whenever we see here, there's good food going on. I'm just saying, I'm just saying,
This is
for one
true.
of the many things. But Nancy, you did lemon curd crepes, right? When we were at,
Mhm.
during, lockdown, major lockdown
Yeah.
when we were in, for COVID, our friend Jerry had a bed and breakfast that we were, we're all, we were supposed to visit for a couple of weeks and then she was like, all right, girls, you got to break out
You
of this
live here
COVID
now.
pandemic and end the pandemic and get going. But no, she was really, really cool. And we had a good time, actually. We really,
Hmm.
yeah, we'd go out in the desert and we saw blooming desert lilies and we cleaned up trash. We did a lot of clean up
Hmm.
trash in the desert. This was out all in 29 Palms outside Joshua Tree. But Nancy, she had all those lemons, remember, that were
Yeah.
ripe. And that's what you said. All right. I think I nominated you to do that, didn't I? To make that.
Well, I didn't nominate myself.
But they were good.
It
She,
was like, uh-oh.
yeah, she made crepes and that was a whole other thing because you have to get your timing right on heat
Yeah.
and how quick it comes out, but a lemon curd and just to drizzle on that was really good. You did
It's
good.
yummy. It
Nancy
was
can
yummy.
cook. Yeah. Gotta put
Mm.
Nancy in that kitchen. No. All right. So, looking forward to Elaine being on the show. Everyone, Eva's website is evaeldridge.com, also in the episode notes. But, Johnny, let's start with you. Since you're, the king of the gratitude club here on Facebook, and that link is in the episode notes too, as are a bunch of articles and other podcasts that we've done over the years on gratitude and thankfulness. But, when you think about your career as a singer-songwriter, is there anyone in specific that you can say, that inspired you that, if you could sit down with them and say, hey, thank you for that, or is it a specific thing that has kept you, is like you're grateful for that it helps you in your career?
Well, when I was thinking about this, obviously a person who comes to mind is Melissa Manchester because
Yes.
of the many ways she's done things in my career. And we've done quite a few, or we've mentioned that quite a few times in podcasts. So I feel like just to kind of expand more, I was thinking about what informed my, I guess the way I've approached, being a singer-songwriter and trying to get my music out in the world, and the way I approach my music, who influenced me, and I came upon my dad, Reverend James Schaefer. He died in 1982, but he gave me a real foundation in my life that really continues to this day to influence how I approach everything, including my music. And I sort of see my music as a ministry, not just spiritually, but just as a human being to other people, and my dad was a Lutheran minister. And the way that he put love into everything he did, and tried to inspire people and to give people ways to find strength in themselves. Because my dad had a lot of adversity. He had multiple sclerosis. He had a hearing problem. He wore a hearing aid, and he loved the music, so he would sing out even though, because when he was young, he didn't develop his hearing problem until he was in college or after college. So he was, very musical. So even when it got to the point where he couldn't hear himself that well, he used to love to sing. And so he and my mom both were musical, and so we've talked about how when I grew up, we would stand around the piano and sing a lot of times instead of watching TV, and so that just music is just an integral part of my life. And I can still remember Dad, the way his face would light up when he sang, or when music was playing that he loved, and he just really instilled the love of music in me at a very young age, and nurtured it and supported my wanting to pursue music. There were some adults telling me when I went to college, oh, you shouldn't major in music, because it's a dead end and you're not going to make any money. And the money thing is challenging, but my dad said, you got to do what you love, and he said, you'll find a way. And then, I did take a detour. I was in the corporate world for a long time because I did feel like I had to make some money, but, so many of the things that I learned from my dad, inspire and inform what I do to this day. The music video of mine for my Christmas album that actually does the best without any promotion all the time is Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabella, and that was my dad's favorite Christmas song. And so I put a lot of part, I guess, into the arrangement and the way I sang it, and I think that comes through. I dedicated the music video to my dad, to the memory of my dad, and all year long, that video gets hundreds of views. People love that song, and they tend to love to listen to it all year long. So I'm always getting people reaching out and saying, I really love this. And I think that connection to my dad really made a special, track. And so I think that, if I want to express gratitude, I'm grateful, to my dad for all of the things that he gave me, the many gifts he gave me in many ways throughout my life that informed my music.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I think it's so important to have that support, and to give you that belief system that you can trust yourself to go for, because you have to trust yourself at the end, no matter what, right? Yeah. And that's special to have someone who backs you up with that. That's awesome. Yeah. So we can put that song in everyone. It's in the episode list. And hey, it's still January. We're still listening to Christmas music. Come on. Some of us, Yeah, why not? Some of us are still drinking eggnog. I'm not saying who, but some of us are. And then some of us are making lemon curd like Eva. So Eva, let's go to you in your career, because it's even when I look at, you've done so many different things too. And, you've done the whole work at the telephone company, as you say, and then go into the world of writing. And then, even that changed up a little bit. Who or what inspires you that you would want to say thank you to, and for which career, which part of it?
Well, I guess the phone company career I'm grateful for because it provides me with income now. I stuck with it for a very, very long time. It wasn't always the job I chose to do, but I'm kind of grateful that I have an income from it now as a retirement. Not a lot, but a little. Every little bit helps.
Yeah.
For the writing stuff, I'm grateful. I had a non-fiction writing teacher. Her name was Laura Van Etten. I'm not sure where she went, but she taught nonfiction, and she was quite inspiring and encouraging with the nonfiction. Because as you know, all I wanted to write was fiction. All I wanted to write was stories. But the nonfiction stuff seems to be more my forte in the long run. The short stories, all the fiction part was Meg Files was the head of the department, and I took many, many, many classes from her. And she had a way of correcting you, when there's many faux pas when you're doing writing. She had a really wonderful way that was encouraging and not like, how can you be so stupid about this? So, and she's still around and she's still very much involved with writing. She's one of the people that works on the writing awards for Tucson Festival of Books. And she does a lot of other things, but she's no longer with Pima Community College. So those two, as far as the writing goes, I'm very grateful for. But as for having a career with it at all, any kind of career, I have to thank Lisa Smith and Nancy Reid.
Oh my gosh, no, come on now.
Amen.
Thank you. Oh,
thank you. They're the ones that really pushed me, and they pushed me, and they pushed me, and they continue to push me.
And listen, I'm going to tell you, Eva's got one of those horoscopes like Nancy, that it's very difficult to push. You just don't. But I don't know. I slipped her wine here and there.
Well, you published that first article, that Volcano National Park article. You published that. And then you've encouraged me to write more, and I'm not nearly prolific with that at all, because I don't write something that I'm not inspired by. I have to really feel something when I go and do something. Sure. And then for me, writing fiction isn't. I have really good skills. I just don't tell a good story. So the nonfiction, the shorter articles on nonfiction seem to be perfect for me, but I really have to be inspired. And that way I can, it's like, you guys really need to go to this place. You really need to experience this at least once. And then I can get all excited about it. So, and the fact that you keep up with that. Food, obviously, is another thing I'm very involved in, off and on, not always, but I go through JAGS, and you've always been very encouraging with that. So
we love it.
Thank you for your support through all these years.
You're welcome.
Back at you too. I mean, we're
proud of you.
Yeah. I mean, it has been really cool to see you grow with the articles, and then you go like, "Hey, I just came back from this, and this inspired me." And then she'll come back with more than one thing that she thought really inspired her from a place. And I'm like, "Look at that, she's got it." But you get right to the point about why people should go there. And I think in this day and age, you can't be wishy-washy, as a writer. People really they're just like, give it to me and still engage me. So there's a talent to be able to do that, Eva, to not over fluff things. And I think maybe your baking skills have that, where there's a science to it. And that if you start over adding things, you're going to lose the flavor of the dish, unless it's a stew or something.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I got to say that when I go to a place and I'm inspired by it, I don't want a blow thing that everybody can read on the web from the National Park Service or from that website of that place or whatever. I don't really care. I mean, they're okay. It gives you basic information, but I usually try to write articles that are more all feely. This is how, this is an amazing thing because, like Windy, what is that?
Fort Windy.
Fort Windy. It's got another name.
Fort Union up in northern New Mexico. Fort Union National Monument.
And the reason that inspired me so much is because you go up there and there's all these, of course, some of them are restored, but roofless buildings, windowless buildings, that the buildings still stand, but the story of how those things were built, and then after the fort was abandoned, how people came in and took the lintels, and they took the doors, and they took the windows, and they took the roofing material because they were building their own houses, and that provided them with building supplies, right? Which is expensive, as we know, even back in the 1800s or 1900s. It's expensive, those things. So it's like that reuse thing. It's recycling. It's good.
Yeah. No, and that's a cool thing. And well, I think we've had many conversations, right, between the three of us, Nancy too, about having people feel in an article about them being there. And I think, Johnny, you do that in your writing too. You want people to have that connection. And we call it creative nonfiction, right? And that's something you really got into. And I remember we were all talking about this. Hey, it's creative nonfiction, because it used to be, well, I went here and then I went there and then I did, and nobody cares about that kind of stuff, writing wise. It just gets a little much. They want that feeling of what you did, but they want to feel like they're present. And, it's like you're giving that person an experience, enticing them to go. But if they never get there, at least they learned about it and had some kind of feeling and experience by reading it, listening to the music. Like, Johnny, come on. I mean, that's part of it too for you, right? Is that connection. And
I was just going to, when Ava was talking about feeling, I was thinking that applies to music as well. When I, in the end, when I'm assessing like how much I like music, it boils down to how much it makes me feel and what it makes me feel. And, there's that quote, and I'm blanking out on her name, but, when the Cage Bird sings, what is her name? Well, she said that
Maya Angelou.
Thank you. Yeah, people don't remember, or they won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And so I think that even an article about something factual, the magic is when you can tell it in such a way that people relate to it. And we relate to things with our feelings. And so, that's wonderful that you're able to do that. And that's what I try to do with my music. I try to move people. And, it's very gratifying when someone says, your song made me cry, or your song inspired me to do something, then I feel like, okay, I've succeeded, and so, it's really important.
I think everyone, we're going to link Eva's article to Fort Windy in the episode notes too. It's in a past episode issue of Parks and Travel magazine, which you can find on nationalparktraveling.com. But I'll put that link to the magazine article. And hey, we should have had Eva on the wind show that we did last year, Johnny, for National Wind Day. I think you were on that show, Eva, weren't you? You were on the wind show.
I don't think so.
Sure, the Breaking Wind Day.
But I'll tell you, Fort Windy is aptly named because you get out. I got out of the car and I had to hold on to the car.
Wow.
Well, it's one of those places. If you need to let one rip, you can get away with it without anybody knowing unless they're downwind of you. Oh, I had to go there. That's terrible.
Lisa.
But you're talking about the arts, and this relates to Nancy. Nancy has written. Obviously, started the magazine in South Africa. But it was also writing newsletters. She wrote wildlife conservation newsletters, did brochure work with her artwork too, as pen and ink sketching of wildlife, like intense. I don't, if you guys could see her pen and ink sit there. I don't, it's very realism, yet still had that connection to the animal, like where you look at them and connect and go, wow, this is a magnificent being, right? And so you did that, and then obviously she's a wildlife artist and painted and toured the world, toured doing conservation work with Joy Adamson, Born Free, with the World Wildlife Fund, and then toured with her artwork for the National Cancer Association, raising funds for them in South Africa. So it's been a nonstop art journey, and then she ended up in the world of magazines, which is still the arts. But I wanted to touch base with Nancy because she's back in her art, because, you just, when you have that in you, like I'll never not do music either. It's like when you have, you're supposed to do something, you're supposed to do it, but she's learning, not AI, Johnny, just to be very clear, because Johnny may fly off the handle.
I refuse.
But she's learning to do digital, do her painting on a computer digitally. Because you can have paintbrushes and things like that on there because of the way we travel. So she's been working on that. And Eva, Nancy's writing a book or two that I think you're going to really like. So the arts, though, Nancy, who inspired you? Like, who would you, or what would you say thank you to for that you looked up to as a really good artist? Because I know the answer, as you can tell.
Well, the first person was Joy Adamson, by making it possible for us to live in Africa, because I met her in North Hollywood, and I used to be a volunteer for Born Free, and she was at an art show, and she walked up and she looked at me and she just said, "Your animals have been caged." And I'm like, "Oh." And then the second person that I met through her was David Shepard, who was like my all-time. I admired this man's work so much. And he's such an idol to me. And I met him, and we were on a TV show together in England. And he walked up to me and he goes, "Well, where do these animals live?" Because I was only doing the animals' faces, not the whole body, and definitely not the landscape for a long time until, I was, he lectured me on, if you don't save the land, there's no point in painting the animal. And I'm like, oh, dang, that hurt. So he inspired me to put the animal back in its original habitat. Don't do it from the zoo. Go to Africa and learn your craft. So he made a big difference to me that way.
Mm.
So
he's done a lot though in life for the
oh yeah, and he had his own wildlife protection organization. He raised funds. And they're still raising funds today, I believe, that all go into conserving habitat for wild animals. So he did a lot of good, as well as his beautiful paintings.
Very cool. It's awesome to see that the legacy can live on. And I think that's something cool about the arts too, right? Like when you talk about Maya Angelou, people in the arts, and, when you listen to what Elaine has to say about her writing and who inspired her and helped her, you've got to remember the people in the industry too. When we watch a movie, we're swept away with the emotion, the scenes, the scene, like the actual landscape of it and the costuming. And how many times do we all forget about the makeup artists and the designers behind it, and all the different crews. And I think sometimes we forget about all of that, and we watch these big award shows, which are important. But because we miss all the little
behind the
that
scenes
are not little. Yeah. I think it's important that the behind the scenes, so it's always important to kind of do the thank yous to the people behind the scenes. I always think that about bands when you go see a show and, people talk through when, the band leader or the front person is, showing off the band, who's in the band. Like on podcasts, like I always go tell everybody about who's in the band, because everybody's part of that sound, not just the lead singer or the guy with the biggest guitar. Oopsie.
That's what I love about the liner notes on CDs. And I always sit through the credits at movies because I just feel like it's disrespectful to walk out. I don't know, so I always like to sit there and read everything.
The liner notes is how, pre-Google, how I started to, as a kid, make connections, as albums for me as a kid, and then obviously CDs later. But really when I was starting to learn, and obviously the library helped a little bit, but not everybody had a book written about them yet, and I was in Africa. So good luck on some of that. But it was the notes that I started seeing, like, what was Bob Marley doing with Eric Clapton? And then wait, Peter Tosh was playing with the Rolling Stones. And I started making this like web of how all these musicians were collaborating, but you never really heard about it or what their relationship was. And then you read the biographies and it gets crazy,
Yeah.
So, it's interesting about that. Even in the book world, the credits are there too. That's also an important thing, right?
Right.
Yeah. Say thank you to those all behind the scenes. Okay. Well,
there's a lot more to getting a book published than what people think, even though AI is out there saying, just do this and upload it to Amazon. Well, we know what kind of books we get from that. So, if you want a book, a real book, a print book, even paperback, and it's the formatting and the cover art and the copyright and all the stuff involved with it. It's really a lot more. A good book is a lot more complicated than just what the author has done.
I always
I
like
have I have a gratitude page on my website where every time I think of it, I go on there and I just think, and as Ava was saying, there's so many people, because also with music, there's graphic design and there's all the people in the studio that do all the things with me. And so and then people like Lisa and Nancy that help us get the word out. And so, I make it an ongoing thing on my website to add to my gratitude page there so that awesome. People can see, who's helping me.
There's things, with us being in the magazine world, growing up into it, I always wanted to be a photojournalist for, it sounds really weird, but all the traveling we did in the conservation work and understanding what was going on in Africa and wars. Well, not really understanding it, but people didn't understand. And Nancy kind of flipped it. So I was like, I want to go be a war photographer. I want to photograph what's going on so people see the reality. And that's kind of that wasn't anything a mother wants to hear.
Yeah. I'm like,
I wanted to go to school for journalism, and the school that was the nearest and the way to do it and everything. And at that time, South Africa was starting to go into crazy upheaval, and which is constant, but it was at that tipping point. Was Rhodes University, and then it was bilingual, and it basically meant I would have to take some courses that are intense in Afrikaans, and there was no way in heck. I mean, I barely passed it. So I was like, okay, Nancy's got a magazine. She really needs good help. And so got into that with her, and always grateful for that opportunity because I learned, and I had to really work hard because I was the daughter amongst the employees. But she put me into all the tedious work, all of it. And the tedious stuff. My friends used to work for her too. We used to all bag magazines and seal them and mail them and all of that for subscribers around the world. It was cool. But, she made me do all the copywriting and I really wanted to write an article. And she's like, you can't make this into that kind of, it's not that, you're not that. Yeah. It's not the National Geographic, but I was getting so frustrated because that's what I wanted to be, was the National Geographic, but we had to write an advertorial or copywriting, but all of that really taught me stuff. But the National Geographic there's just certain books we always had that I would go through that were like the world atlases that would show you things around the world, especially the natural side of it. But the National Geographic, I think it still to me is amazing. It's meant the world to me, literally. The photography, they couldn't do huge write-ups. So that taught me about brevity, like what we were talking about with EVA. It just, those stories are personal, but yet nonfiction. So it really, I just thought, and I still, I mean, there's nothing like the National Geographic, right? And, I mean, who doesn't love to have those huge collections of all those old National Geographics in their bookshelf? You have a cup of tea and,
until you have to move, and then you have to move all those things, then you start second thinking that.
Did you end up with some of ours, by the way? Did we? I don't know if I still have
I have a whole bunch of your books.
I know. It's cool to see you because I feel at home there. I'm like, oh, I remember this.
I have your plants, so
I know. It's cool. But the National Geographic is massive.
Amazing.
And so when we got over here and we start the magazines, that's always, that to me is, and of course we're not the National Geographic, right? We're not the staff. We don't, we're not this massive organization, but it's a standard of trying to always achieve that in how the photography and the writing and the connectivity and it shows people how massive and extraordinarily diverse the world is, yet so connected.
Mhm.
That was the beauty of it to me. But then, like on the podcast and everything, we started interviewing the authors and the editors for the books, then the filmmakers who do those amazing that was like my biggest birthday gift last year is interviewing all these filmers, these, the filmmakers, the guys who go out and hang upside down on helicopters and do this stuff and wait and sit and wait for the wildlife, set up the webcams, go
Mhm.
into all of that kind of territory. And, it's still that level, that quality of, that inspiration. So it's never left. So I got to thank the National Geographic and the people behind it, because I think they have we've seen magazines come and go, and you pick up a magazine and 90% of it is like ads, and everyone has to have ads, but I think the National Geographic, yes, they have ads, but I think they have maintained their quality in everything they do, whether it's film, whether it's books, kids' books, the magazine, and just, I don't know, it's really cool. So anyway, big shout out to, another
Mhm.
magazine.
They make you feel like you're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you read their articles, you are there, whether it's
Mhm.
foreign country, city, out in the wilderness, they make you feel like you're right there. And that's a real talent.
And make you also learn things you didn't think you wanted to know, and
Yeah.
challenge you to look at things in a different way, scientifically.
Mhm.
Yeah, just always, every time I pick up a National Geographic, my world is blown, so it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So thank you all for joining us here. We've got Elaine A. Powers next, everyone. Please check the episode notes for the links we talked about. We've got Eva's Fort Windy article. We've got Johnny's song, and and maybe I'll put links to everything we've done on National Geographic, but it's a lot. We've done a ton. But thank you all, and we're off to Elaine Powers now. Thank you. And Eva, save some of that lemon curd.
I will.
Yeah.
Yum.
Yummy.
Nice.
So in celebration of National Thank You Month, which we think, being thankful and having gratitude is an important thing every day, we have author Elaine A. Powers back on the show. You can keep up with her at elaineapowers.com. She's part of the Tucson Sisters in Crime, which is a group of writers, editors, publishers, everybody that's involved in writing about crime, reading about crime, editing crime, publishing crime, hopefully not committing the crimes, right, Elaine?
Yes.
It's like, thank you, I've killed you now. No, it's like, I'm thankful for you, but yeah. So yeah, it's an amazing organization. But Elaine, you're here on the Thank You Show, and this is a show that we're looking about. If we think back in our lives in different careers, there's always someone who has inspired us, or we look to as a role model. Sometimes we've met them, sometimes we haven't. And it's just like, if you could go back and say, hey, thank you for this. You inspired me for certain things. Who would you want to thank?
Well, in today's episode, I want to thank Nora Miller. She was really responsible for launching my writing career and making it a reality. And the longer I knew her, the more extraordinary I realized she was. She was the editor who first said, sure, I can take your text and put it on your hard copy illustrations, and then take it to what was then CreateSpace. It's now Kindle Direct Publishing, and create a book for me. And so she became my first editor and book formatter and proofreader. And so if it hadn't been for her, I doubt many of my books would have actually been published, because she worked with Amazon to develop their illustrated book creation process. But then as I got into wanting to do some bilingual books, I discovered that she could actually edit in Spanish just as well as she could in English.
Wow.
She could edit in French.
Wow.
As well as she could in English. And no matter what language, well, okay, Chamorro was one she didn't know. But her skill set was just extraordinary. And like I said, if it hadn't been for her, I don't think I'd be as published as I am. And I doubt I would call myself an author.
Well, and you've got over 25 books now?
Oh, yes, close to 30.
Close to 30 books, really focused, science-based books for kids, very musical, rhythmical, teaching kids about reptiles and, the desert and nature. And, they're wonderful. And so, here she helps you get there. And I want to say this about, the importance of people understanding children's books are not easy to write because, you have to still get your point across, entertain, be colorful, understand the age of the child, the parent even, or age group. And you can't go over, it's like you have to go to bare basics. And so it's, you don't just go, oh, they're kids, they'll just read whatever. And kids are picky, man.
Oh, they are.
They know when you suck. Can I just say that?
And they will tell you too.
I know. So have you talked to kids that have read your books?
Oh, I have. And I used to try to get at least one kid to read the book before I published it. And they're brutally honest, which I appreciate. I want the kids' feedback. But their feedback is also what kept me going because when I'd be thinking, do I really want to write another Curtis Curlytail book? They come back and say, okay, when's the next one? What's Curtis going to be doing next? So it keeps you going too.
That's awesome. And so with Nora helping you get all of this started, right? Look how far you've gone.
Yes.
And did you ever think that? I mean, when you were a kid, did you ever think you would have written almost 30 books?
I didn't imagine myself writing one book.
Yeah.
But yes, no, you never know where life's going to take you. You just have to be open to the twists and turns, and hopefully you find people like Nora along the way who share your vision and want to walk a parallel path. Yeah,
the parallel path where it's a partnership, right? And you work together and you respectfully. And the fact that she could do different languages too, because some of your books are bilingual, right? You can get them in Spanish, which is fantastic with you being based in Tucson, Arizona.
Exactly. And I had a friend who offered to translate one in French. And so she actually proofread it and said he got this one part wrong. So she fixed it. But yeah, it was just amazing that no matter what language I threw at her, she was fluent in it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, respect to Nora. So that was her life work, was helping authors.
She was an editor.
Okay.
So she edited professional, like engineering books, is how she made her living. But then she also edited for us more creative types. And she touched many authors here in the Tucson area.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, everyone, you can keep up with Elaine and her work. Go to ElaineAPowers.com. It is linked in the episode notes. Elaine's always on our shows. We love to have the ladies from the Tucson Sisters in Crime join us. And sometimes they have men being part of them. You never know. So it's always fascinating and fun. And sometimes we talk about murdering people on shows. But today we're thanking people instead of murdering, right? So last time we were talking about vampire tortoises. So you never know what you're going to get. Thanks so much, Elaine, and you take care.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.